Hello, my name is Alvin Richards. I'm Chief Product Officer for RedisLabs, and today we're going to talk about Redis, Redis Enterprise and Tanzu, and how you can join all these different worlds together. So let's make a start. Let's think first of all about Redis and Redis open source. Great, super popular open source project, millions of downloads, billions of Docker pools. Why do developers love it? Well, developers love it because the basic principle is data structures. And so what do we mean by data structures? Well, things like lists, sets, sorted sets, hashes. These are all things that are familiar for a developer to use. And it means that from their code perspective, they're operating with data structures they're familiar with and then persist those. Unlike sort of having to create a JSON document or XML or go through a relational mapping layer, your code represents the data as it's persisted. The other thing that developers love to do is they love to build really fast applications, right? Who likes to create slow applications? Certainly not me, and I'm assuming not you. And so Redis offers very, very low latency access to data, sub-millisecond. You can build clusters that can do 200 million operations a second. And so the question really becomes, what can you do if you have a data store that can actually keep up with all of your requirements, allow you to see more data and get more visibility into that data to do more things with it? So what are the sort of typical use cases? Well, obviously we said Redis is an in-memory data store. So one of the first places people start is Redis as a cache, taking data out of those existing systems, relational or non-relational systems, putting a copy of that into Redis, and then being able to access that data very quickly with very low latencies. And as soon as you're successful with the cache, people then look at use cases like personalization, right? From a development perspective, what you want to do is you want to build rich experiences. In order to build rich experiences, you need to access a lot of data and be able to curate it in such a way that it appeals to the end user or the consumer of that data. You want to create an offer that is relevant to what they've just been doing or what they've been looking at. Other use cases are things like risk scoring. You want to ensure that you have sufficient access to the data so that you can approve, for example, a credit card transaction based on the fact that you already know that somebody's purchased this flight and they've just arrived at their destination. And so you want to approve that credit card score. You've also got things like session stores. Right? You want to ensure that any context that you've created, it now can transcend both the mobile experience, the web applications experience, and as you move from data center to data center, you still retain that context. So that's Redis. So why is there a thing called Redis Enterprise? Well, Redis Enterprise adds a bunch of really critical features, but let's just talk about two of those. The first one is active-active. And so we've built technology that allows you to ensure that you can create clusters in different data centers, in different geographies, and you can ensure that the data is consistently replicated and is consistent across all those copies. We use this with a mechanism called CRDTs. And so CRDTs are conflict-free resolved data types that ensure that if you have two changes that occur in two different data centers, that's coalesced to a single value and a single correct value. So that allows you to build applications that span those data centers. Additionally, you could use this technology to allow you to deal with data center failover. You can lose the whole of a data center and you still got the surviving data centers with an accurate and consistent copy of that data. The second key feature is Redis on Flash. And so, as we talked about before, Redis is an in-memory database. And so you keep data in DRAM. Well, DRAM's kind of expensive, right? It's getting cheaper, but it's expensive. And so you want to be able to tier the data between DRAM and SSD. And with technologies like Intel's persistent memory, you can now tier it across multiple layers to ensure that the data is in many places. And so this allows you to get the right cost model for your data. Whether it's hundreds of terabytes of data, you can store this cost effectively and still retain the access to the data using Redis on Flash. Now, let's talk about this bottom quadrant, right? So Tanzu, let's think about how people want to deploy, right? People want to deploy on-prem, right? They want to orchestrate things with Kubernetes. They want to deploy things into not just one cloud, but multiple clouds. And so how do you effectively do that? Well, RedisLabs, we've been working with the Tanzu platform and the creators of that for many years. So whether you want to use a sort of more traditional BOSH-style PCF type of deployment, or you want to use PKS, these are different ways that you can use the same platform to deliver ultimately your application and Redis Enterprise. And so whether it's on-prem, Kubernetes, or across a cloud, Active allows you to build these clusters, deploy them in the way that you want, that span the geographies, to span the cloud providers, in order to actually ultimately provide the reliability and resiliency you need to your application from an operator's perspective, but from a developer's perspective, keep the developer community happy in using a product that they want to use because they can be effective and solve the problems they want to, and keeping the whole organization actually in balance. So what can you do next? You can go download these products to go build them. Your developers can go away and create these applications based on these data structures that they're familiar with, and you can actually ensure you get a successful deployment to solve the business problems that ultimately you're being tasked to resolve and solve. Thank you.